Hey guys, so welcome to my channel, and today we are going to talk about the concentric circle and how we can create a concentric circle in with the with the help of HTML, CSS, and the React. Okay, and this is a question which is getting asked very commonly in the interview rounds, interview coding rounds for the front end interviews. It was recently asked in the Survey Monkey. So today I'm going to discuss a step-by-step process for making circles concentric and draw it one by one. Let's try to understand what is the concentric circle is. So if you're seeing here, these are the concentric circles because all the circles are sharing the same center. So the circles which are sharing the same centers are called the concentric circles. The additions of these questions were that components should have ability to configure the number of circles, gaps between the circles, border width of the circles, and the radius of the circle. Okay, so all these things we need to consider while creating this concentric circle. So let's get started, and we will try to find out an optimal solution for this and make concentric circle more configurable as it is as configurable as it is asked. So for that particular purpose, what I am going to do, I am going to create one internal component called function concentric circle internal. Okay, and under that I am going to pass the same set of parameters. So let me try to copy these parameters, and I am pasting these parameters over here. And for now I'm just simply returning div, let's say hello internally. So and this we will going to call it, use it over here, concentric circle internal. Okay, and pass all these parameters like number of circles, gaps, and border. Then what else do we have? Let me try to squeeze it a bit. And the border, after border, what else we have? Radius. Radius is equals to radius. Okay. So the hello internally is called. If you see, I think it will be better if it will be centered instead of showing all this information on the top left corner. So for that I am using Tailwind CSS. So let me try to make this center. So class name equals to flex. I'm using flex. So and flex direction is going to be flex column, and for making center we going to use justify center and item center. So justify center will center horizontally and item center will center vertically. Now save it, and it's center horizontally but it's not center vertically because the height is driven by the content. So let me try to set a height also explicitly. So edge, the screen I am going to set. So the height is now. For drawing the concentric circle, what I am thinking to start with the div, and we will first try to create a square, and that square can be converted into the circle. So let's first try to make a square with the div. So style, I am going to set radius is equals to, not radius, actually radius we cannot set. So we need to calculate the diameter. So const diameter is equals to radius multiplied by 2. So this is the diameter of it. So if we will try to set it to height is equals to diameter, and width is also equals to diameter. Okay. Now we set the height and width. Now how it will become visible, we have to first set the height and width we set. Then we have to set the border width. Border width is equals to border. Okay, so if you're seeing here now, there is a border here. 25 pixel border is too much. So for now, I'm setting it to 2 pixels. Border width is okay. I set it to 2 pixels, but it is not reflecting. Why? Okay, sorry. So I am not going to pass the defaults from here. Defaults passing defaults from multiple different places will unnecessarily create confusion. So border I am going to pass from here. 2 pixel is too less. 5 pixel is better. So I'm setting it to 5 pixel. Now the color which definitely needs some improvement. So for the color, what I am going to do, I am going to set it to uh, class name. I am again going to use Tailwind CSS, and from the border red is great. 500 I'm choosing. So it's now becoming red. So this hello internally definitely will go away. Okay. And this concentric circle is actually coming to the center, which needs some more style. So I am going to give the class name to text to Excel. So it will look a bit better. And then the gaps I can set between these two. So gap I am setting it to 2.5 to create a gap. Now this is looking much better. This concentric circle. Okay. So how can we make this circle? The making circle is pretty easy. We just have to set the border radius. So if you set the border radius to 50%, then it becomes a circle. But for now, what we will do, we will not use this border radius for the moment. Let me try to comment this border radius. And first we will try to draw the another square within this particular square, which is going to match all these requirements, border, gap, everything. And then we will try for the circle. So I'm going to make div again with the same style and configuration. So this same style and configuration I am making. Okay. But as it is not visible, why? Because this is an overlapping one. So for that particular purpose, what we have to do, we have to decide the diameter of this circle. So the diameter for the first, what we can do for this particular diameter, how we can calculate the diameter. So the diameter is going to be minus obviously gap here and the gap here also in the width and height both. So we can see the gap is again there, but the border width is actually bit border width is actually 5 pixels. That's why we are not seeing it. So what we can do, border width to 1. If I set it to 1, so you'll be able to see here the gap is there, but the drawing is happening from the top left corner. So that's why there is no gap between the left and the top, but there is a gap in the right and the bottom. So what we can do, we have to tell the outer circle that your internal drawing should happen from the center. So that's why these space will become evenly distributed. So how can we do that? We can simply tell the same thing which we tell to this root component here also. So flex, we are going to use justify center and items center. Okay. So if you said it, then what happened? This gap is evenly distributed now. But there is a problem here. What problem we have? The gap is actually saying 10 pixel. It is saying 10 pixel, but actually gap is coming around 5 pixel over here. Why the 5 pixel is coming? Because the gap that we have taken is actually divided from the top and bottom both. Okay, while calculating the width. So it should be 5 pixel less from the top also and 5 pixel less from the bottom also. So that's why what we need to do, we need to multiply it by 2. Okay, and here also we have to multiply it by 2. So once we multiply it by 2, we can see the enough gapping between them. Now let's come about the border. So if you set the now if you set the border to 5 pixels, what will happen? This gap is the gap has decreased. It is again coming to be less. It will become more evident if I set it to 10 pixels. So if you can see here, this is completely overlapped. The borders are overlapped. It's because why? Because default all the divs are the border box divs. So whenever we are providing height, the border goes inside the height and the width. So the actual content start from if I am providing 200 pixel as radius, so 400 pixel plus 10 plus 10 yani 410. It start from the content will start from the 410 itself. So that's why we are not able to see this gap in between. So what we have to do, we have to consider the border gap also. So we will going to add the border also, and for the same, and this one also will have border plus gap for the same. So now we will be able to see there is a border gap in between both of them, and border is also needed to be deducted from the top and the bottom both. So that's why reduce the diameter by border plus gap for both height and width. Okay, so now we have achieved this with the border and gap. So now let's try to change some gap. So I'm sending gap to 50 pixel. Okay, just a second, 50. So it's pretty evident, it's a 50 pixel. Now if we try to set the border to 20, so if you see the rectangle will shift downwards. So if you can see, yeah, so 20. If I will try to set it to 50, so if you can see the rectangle is again shifting downwards. So the 50 pixel gap is getting maintained. That's about it. I'm setting border again to 10. Okay, cool. Now we understand this. Now it will become more evident that what will be the approach I am going to follow when I am going to draw the third solution. So the third solution which we are going to draw is actually copying it again and pasting it here. Okay, so if you paste it here, how many times we have to multiply this particular factor? It depend upon if it is on the first part, then we have to multiply this factor by 0. So let me try to go over here and type the same expression. So the same expression is there. So if I am passing here 0, it means at the first we have to go with 0. Sorry, multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 0, 2 multiplied by 0. Okay, so for the first we are going with the 0. For the second, what we need 1. For third, what we need uh, for third we need what? We need 2. Okay, and again it is the same problem. So how we can fix it? By setting the flex box. So flex justify center items center. Cool. So now if you'll be able to see, this is the concentric circle which is properly maintaining the right gap, border, everything, considering it perfectly fine. So what I can do, I can try to calculate this fixed part over here. So I can say total gap I can tell, and total gap will be this 2, and I can command D, total gap. Perfectly fine. For the first step, what we are doing, we are multiplying it by 0. For the second, we are multiplying it by 1. For the third, we are multiplying it by 2. So now if you try to see these two diffs are extremely identical. Okay, because border, flags, height, everything is same except for this current index. The current index is 0 here, this factor is 1 here, this factor is 2 here. So what we can do, we can try to use the same component, because this is the case of a recursive component. So we can try to use the same component except for the current index. We can pass it every time differently. So how we can do this? So what we can do, we can try to introduce current index. Okay, by default it will be 0, and instead of every time repeating this, which is not a scalable solution, I can try to make it as call this concentric circle internal again with same parameters. Okay, and when do we have to call the first index? When the number of concentric circle is actually 2. So what we need to see, the current index plus 1 is greater than number of circles, and the current index we need to pass it is equals to current index plus 1. Okay, it is still not working. You can try to see why it is not working. Okay, so the current index we are passing it as 0. Now the current index we are passing current index plus 1. Okay, you only need to call it when it is okay, so typo mistake, less than number of circles. Okay, and instead of 0, what we are going to do, we are going to use the current index here. Current index here. Cool. So what we have done, we have created a main container concentric circle, and under that we created one internal component, which is a recursive component, which is calling itself based on the current index. We are deciding when to stop it. So if the current index plus 1 is less than number of circle, then only we are drawing it, otherwise we will immediately stopping it. Now we set it to border radius 50, so it will become a circle. So let me try to show you again. Report 200. Okay, border radius 10. Then gap is 20, and number of circle is 4, 5. Okay, cool. Now if I set number of circle 10, what will happen? This will start overlapping over here. So how can we fix it? We can say that if this calculation we can use if the radius multiplied by 2 is greater than, or you can say less than, this total gap equals to border multiplied by border plus gap multiplied by 2 multiplied by number of circle minus 1. Okay, so we have to always number of circle minus 1, because the first is starting with 0 is actually less than this, it means we cannot draw the circle. So we can simply say return div we cannot draw circle with this configuration. Okay, perfect, it's working fine. Now if I set it to 6, it's perfectly drawing. 7, it's perfectly drawing. If you're 8, it will give error. Perfect. Okay, cool. That's all. Thank you for watching this, and let me know your experience. Have you ever faced this particular problem? And did you like this video? Did you understand how this concentric circle is implemented? What better solution if you are having, you can also propose in the comment box. Thank you.